How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope, this time for August 9th through August 15th of 2021. God, summer's almost over. Anyway, let's jump into it. We actually have kind of an interesting week. Let me pull this up. I know this might be a little bit hard to read. I'm still trying to figure out how to make this easier to read, so bear with me. I know I'm a Gen Z, but I'm a boomer with technology, but I'm slowly getting there. Thank you for your patience. We're starting this week, August 9th, with the moon ingressing into Virgo, immediately then conjoining Mars, with Venus going opposite Neptune as we start Monday. Pretty much that's a bunch of Japanese for that. Monday's going to be a little weird, in my opinion. We're coming off that new moon in Leo where, kind of like I talked about, there's this, retracting away. There's this kind of going within yourself, kind of identifying a little bit more. Who are you? What do you believe? Separating yourself from a lot of, structures or paradigms. And the new moon in Leo is really just a recharging of yourself, right? Like a kind of a pump up, really, so to say. But as we go into Monday, the moon's going to ingress into Virgo and is going to pretty much be conjoining Mars all day long. So there's this really pesky and annoying sense of hyper perfectionism that I think that is going to kind of gnaw at you almost in a sense. That's kind of a drastic way to characterize this. However, I think it's really easy after this new moon in Leo because it's opposite Saturn. There's a lot of pressure right now. When the Leo being the sun, right, the performer, feels like there's, critics in the crowd, there's this need to perform extra more, right? When there's that pressure of not doing good enough, that Leo's going to, try to do things even more. So coming off of a new moon opposite Saturn where there can feel like extra pressure, I just feel like the moon going into Virgo, conjoining Mars, it's going to be really easy to like beat yourself up, be super nitpicky, again, hyper perfectionist, right? But I think what is also nice about this moon-Mars conjunction is that after this new moon, this is kind of like, okay, I've reset my intentions. I'm clear with who I am. I got my energy clear that I need to get cleared. You got your confidence up, right? The moon's going to go into Virgo, conjoin Mars, where there's this sense of like, now what? Now that I feel this way, now that I've reset these intentions, now that I've kind of am looking at things through a different perspective, where can I organize myself? Where can I direct my energy specifically? Like it's super funny. Like before I recorded this, I'm watching like minimalist videos and productivity videos, and it's very like I'm already kind of feeling this moon Mars. Like this is the day to like, clean your house, get your shit together, get your life together. What's interesting though is Venus is opposite Neptune. And the thing I'm going to tell you guys as we get closer and closer, or not closer and closer, as we keep having transits hitting Neptune, Virgo and Venus going into Virgo, right? Venus is about value, beauty, luxury goods. In Virgo, there's this sense of hyper specificity, and there's this sense of, trying to get something really specific, a really specific look, but it's not working. And I think Venus opposite Neptune is cool for like a dreamscape vibe. Like Venus and Virgo opposite Neptune in Pisces is like when you, the way I would almost like say this is kind of like when you get the frame rate, right? When you're like shooting a helicopter and how it looked like a helicopter's propeller isn't moving at all because the frame rate lines up. It's kind of like, if you get it just right, if you dial in the frame rate just right, you can make some kind of movie magic, right? And what's funny is like, it's like, or like, have you seen that video of the bird flying on, it's like the Ring doorbell and the bird doesn't look like it's moving its feathers at all because it lines up with the frame rate? That's very much like Venus and Virgo opposite Neptune and Pisces. Kind of a happy accident creates an illusion. However, I would also keep in mind though, I was actually just reading this book, What If We're Wrong? And because I'm like throwing away everything I have right now, or I shouldn't say throwing away. I'm donating a lot of it, doing the right thing with it. But I have this book called What If We're Wrong? And it brought up this whole, do you guys remember the blue, black, white, gold dress thing back in, I think that was 2014. It was really interesting because the guy was like, that was a really weird case of like everyone kind of questioning what they see. And there was this whole theory about colors. I'm sure there's a few of you that know a little bit more about that than I do. But I look at like this Venus and Virgo opposite Neptune and Pisces is very kind of similar to that dress situation of like, hey, what you're seeing could be subjective. Like but you might be seeing an illusion, right? There's something distorted here that might feel a little bit weird. So Venus and Virgo is like, if it's not like if something doesn't look right, you might have it twisted. So just don't make assumptions, truly. And I think with all of this Virgo energy, it's going to be really easy to be like, oh, I got an answer for that. I have a remedy for that. I have this, I have that. Venus and Virgo going opposite Neptune and Pisces, you're like, okay, well, it's like if as a filmmaker, well, I don't want to say I'm a filmmaker. Oh, whoops, I thought I was going to go back to just picture me. Anyway, if you have shot video before, you can get rolling shutter in the background, and it's like black and white. Like sometimes if you watch a YouTuber's videos, you'll see like this, like these little black stripes kind of like move up and down in the background. And I remember trying to shoot video, and it was like, it took me forever to figure out what that even was, how to fix it, how to change it. And that's how I look at all of this. It's like this, there's going to be this like little tiny specific things, these little tiny specific problems that you may not necessarily know how to fix. But that might make things look a little bit weird. So my suggestion is on Monday is it's like trial and error, right? Like that's why I said Moon conjoining Mars, it's going to be easy to beat yourself up and, you know, think that you're not good enough, think that you're not doing things good enough. Stop it. Like it's like you're not going to get everything perfect, and you're not going to see but it's about how are you directing that energy? Like, you know, be productive as you can, get yourself organized. You know, for a lot of people, I know we're getting ready for the school year, and I know that incentivizes a lot of people to kind of get their shit together. But anyway, that's what's Monday. That's what's going on Monday. Let's go to Tuesday. Whoops, let me change this. So if we look at Tuesday, we're going to be having the moon actually conjoin Venus while the moon is going opposite Neptune. So again, we get more of that Neptune action with the Virgo stuff. And Mercury is going to be opposite Jupiter. Notice that I made that one of the highlights of this week, along with Venus going opposite Neptune. So the moon's going to start applying to Venus and won't really make the conjunction till later that night. But as the moon's conjoining Venus and Virgo, that's, you know, again, it's change is uncomfortable, but change is good. It's kind of like if you grew out your hair for a really long time, or like as a guy, like when I shave my face, like I look a little like I got like baby face, right? Like I'll look a little younger. And I feel like the moon conjoining Venus and Virgo is like cleaning stuff up, and it looks a little like, you know, like you just like, it's like when you mow a lawn too short, or again, like when you get a haircut after growing your hair out and it's like short, it's like, okay, it just needs a minute to like regrow again. That's how I feel like Tuesday is. But the moon in Virgo conjoining Venus in Virgo, there is this sense of like, hey, like, let's make this look better, right? Let's fix this. Let's take care of this. Let's make this look good. But it's Venus and Virgo. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But this is doing something different. This is doing something a little bit more, you know, specific. And the other thing is, as the moon's conjoining Venus, right, there's this sense of like wanting to get an aesthetic pleasure. But I think as the moon's going opposite Neptune, you know, if you've ever cut your own hair, you probably understand that. You go, oh, I think I know what I'm doing. And then you do it. You're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. That's what Tuesday looks like to me. And I think that's okay. I mean, like sometimes you just have a bad hair day. You just have a bad haircut. Not that this looks kind of bad, but I think Tuesday's I really think Monday and Tuesday is a lot about trial and error. And I think with the moon in Virgo conjoining Venus in Virgo, there is this like trying to get the specific look, trying to get things to look the specific way. And it's opposite Neptune. You might be able to get that with a little bit of like movie magic, right? Like that's what's so fun about like even being a YouTuber. There's so many things that you can kind of do to create a scene. That's what a lot of Tuesday looks like, you know, just kind of putting things in the right places that you need them to be placed to get the right image that you're looking at, or to get the image that you want to look at. But then we also have Mercury going opposite Jupiter. I don't know how I feel about this, simply because the Leo stuff is so like, everything's in Virgo right now, right? And we're getting ready for Virgo season. Everything's starting to go in aversion to the Aquarius stuff. So we're starting to, you know, it's kind of like a timeout real quick. But I think as, you know, Mercury's in Leo at those later degrees where it's a little bit more serious, Mercury's like, you know, okay, I got to communicate authentically. I have to be bold. I have to be loud. I have to be proud. Opposite Jupiter and Aquarius, you know, at the bare minimum, the way that you can delineate this is like, yes, saying something to like a crowd of people or communicating something to people. Mercury opposite Jupiter, Mercury and Jupiter are opposites in and of themselves, right? Their natures and their qualities are different. And now you have them at this opposition where this is literally a fight between, you know, rational and idealism, right? And I think with Mercury and Leo, there's this sense of like, hey, I have to be, you know, it's all this Leo stuff is kind of like, all right, how do you feel about a lot of things? Where do you feel more love? Where do you feel more pride? Where do you feel more authentic? What are you actually seeing? I think Mercury and Leo too, rationalizing things through a lens of the self, right? That's kind of like Mercury and Leo. Going opposite Jupiter and Aquarius, that's combating the sense of, an integrative an integration. Fuck, I don't know my words. Integrating with other people. And I think Mercury and Leo opposite Jupiter and Aquarius. I mean, like, for one, this whole, I made a video about this and I haven't put it out yet because I'm a little bit afraid to. But the whole vaccine and how that's integrating society is going to be a story that, I mean, it's not a really big prediction to say that this is going to be a story that unfolds for a long time. But I think you might see much more of that conversation happen with Mercury opposite Jupiter. But then also Mercury is going to conjoin Mars like 3 different times. So I would look at this as being so much more. You'll hear this about more about the vaccine passport thing. I think these are just kind of ideas at this moment. But I also look at this on a personal level. Mercury and Leo opposite Jupiter and Aquarius is so, again, like, you might be looking at things through a different perspective than what everyone else might be looking at them. And I think while everything's in Virgo too, and Mercury's in Leo, where there is this sense of focusing on the self, there is this sense of focusing on like you. I think with everything in Virgo, there's this kind of like, okay, we just had this new moon in Leo, right? Like, who are you? How do you feel about stuff? How are you individualizing yourself? And now that we're dealing with all this Virgo stuff, it's like, putting things in their places and doing what you got to do, right? Mercury being in Leo going opposite Jupiter is so like having to, I would say, express that, but also having to counterbalance your rational ideas of yourself and integrating that with the greater whole of things. And so I think on Tuesday, there's, again, the Mercury opposite Jupiter. It's kind of an interesting transit, in my opinion, because this is, I mean, Mercury goes into Virgo almost immediately afterwards. So I think this is super like, okay, sure, I might feel this way about certain things, but how are we integrating this in with the greater whole, right? Like, that's what's interesting about this Leo Aquarius dynamic is like, sure, you can go off, you could be very Leo, be independent, be on your own thing, but there's still it's Jupiter's back in Aquarius, right? There still has to be this integration aspect. There has to be this coming together aspect that happens. That's what Jupiter does. You know what I mean? So we get into Wednesday, because again, Tuesday is kind of like trying to get everything right and then having to really kind of go, okay, I have to bring, like, I could go out this way, but I have to come back at some point. We get into Wednesday, and the moon's going to then ingress into Libra, make that trine to Saturn, and Mercury's going to enter Virgo on Wednesday. So again, it's nice that we have a Wednesday with Mercury going right into Virgo. Let me actually fast forward a little bit here, go a couple hours later. Literally midday on Wednesday is when we're going to have, for one, the moon go into Libra, which I genuinely think this will be much more relaxing. As the moon ingresses into Libra, this is about, okay, let's have some peace. Let's, just settle everything out. Can we just sit down? Can we all just get along? And I think as the moon's in Libra, there's this sense of like, hey, what is right? What is wrong? And it's trining Saturn in Aquarius. There's this sense of, reconciliation where the moon's in Libra, like, hey, is that fair? Is that right? Is that just? And as the moon's trining Saturn, there's this sense of like, actually applying that to, where Saturn is about the rules that we have to live by and and where we have to be more disciplined, where we have to be more mature about things. And I think as the moon's in Libra trining Saturn, there's this sense of having more compassion and understanding that. But it is a balancing act, right? This is, in Libra, this is give and take. This isn't, one size fits all and it's all going, one certain way. I think as the moon goes into Libra, there's this kind of sense of like, all right, let's actually fucking talk about it. Let's actually work things out a little bit. And I say talk about it too, because Mercury's going into Virgo. Mercury's not in Leo anymore on Wednesday. We're not just speaking from, we just have to be honest. Like, I love being a Mercury in Leo, but it's so shitty at the same time. Because I'm like, I just have to be honest, but it's not always, the best thing. Mercury going into Virgo, I mean, I literally get jealous every single time I talk to Mercury and Virgo. They're just so good with words. Mercury is communication, messages, how we're getting things across. Again, it's also our rational mind, how we're really thinking about things through that rational lens. And that planet that does that job of rationality is going into its favorite sign. So maybe we can have a little bit more rational discussions. Maybe, we'll see. But I think at least with Mercury going into Virgo, this is being very specific with our words, with our vocabulary, with our intentions behind our words, because that's something I'm going to be talking a lot about with Mercury conjoining Mars. But with Mercury going into Virgo, there is this sense of like, all right, I'm understanding things correctly now. There's this physical, tangible aspect of Virgo. It's an earth sign, right? It's Virgo. It's tangible. It's physical. It's real life, right? Like Gemini is so much of ideas and what you kind of think about or what you talk about, versus Virgo is like written word, like documentation. So I think as Mercury goes into Virgo, there is this sense of, again, just things clicking, things getting a lot more clear, being able to have, and this is the thing, this doesn't mean, everyone's going to, I think the moon in Libra is going to be a little bit nicer with trining Saturn. There is the sense of trying to just balance things out, but Mercury on top of Mars in Virgo, like this is like weaponized words, which I mean, no one is unfamiliar with in this day and age, but like the weaponization of like your vocabulary and all of that shit. Mercury conjoining Mars is like people, like if you're going to get in an argument with someone, you better have your sources. You better have like, this is going to be a fucking headache in my opinion. But at least it's Mercury and Virgo. Like it's good dialogue. Like it's not just yelling, it's dialogue, if that makes sense. Like there's actual conversation happening at this point. So on Wednesday, I like Wednesday, but in my opinion, Wednesday is just a day where things kind of really click together. We get to Thursday, and notice that I say nothing. Truly nothing is going on Thursday, in my opinion. Let me show you why I say that. We go to Thursday. What's the moon doing? Nothing. The moon it's separated from Saturn, but it's not yet really even close. It's 9 degrees away from Jupiter, so that trine won't even happen till Friday. Mercury hasn't done much. Sun's not doing nothing. Venus not doing nothing. Like genuinely Thursday, nothing is going on. It's just the moon in Libra. So what I would say with that is like, take that as a sign of the universe of like, maybe relax a little bit. Like moon in Libra, there is a like, as a moon in Libra, I could go on and on and on and on about what you can do. But while the moon's not really doing anything, right? And the moon is separating from Saturn and applying to Jupiter. And it has quite a while between that transit. Oh my God, I'm about to sneeze. And it didn't happen. Okay. Anyway, the moon will be in Libra and not really do much. Applying to Jupiter, there's this sense of like, all right, like trying to balance things out. Enjoy maybe the peace that you have in that moment. It's like maybe if you have kids and they're usually really rambunctious, but they're gone and you get like that an hour of like time to yourself and peace. That's like this moon in Libra transit, in my opinion. Like Mercury's in Virgo, Mars in Virgo, Venus in Virgo. Like back to school energy, in my opinion. Like get your shit together, get organized. What are we doing for the rest of the year? I have my Jupiter in Capricorn, so I love like planning and doing shit like that. But I think as the moon's in Libra, just not a lot's going on. And it's really just about, and I think, enjoying that. And that changes a little drastically as we get into Friday. As we get into Friday, notice we have the moon making that trine to Jupiter like I talked about. And then the moon's going to ingress into Scorpio immediately afterwards and then make a sextile to both Mercury and Mars. So Friday, that moon's going to make that trine to Jupiter in Aquarius, where I think this is like, moon in Libra is like, maybe if we all just like have a nice relaxing day, then maybe we can all get along. I like this for Friday being Venus's day. But the moon's going to be trining Jupiter. There is this sense of like, we can get along. There is the sense of like, things can make sense. You know, it's super crazy. Like just how tense everything in the world is, especially with like people right now, on a lot of subjects. And I think the moon making this trine to Jupiter is like, this is not world peace, but this definitely seems at least one of the nicer days, and where everyone is less antagonistic or less, confrontive. I think the moon in Libra trining Jupiter is just, for the most part, will be getting along. But then the moon enters Scorpio, where moon in Scorpio is so like, oh, but then, the fear hits. And the moon going into Scorpio, again, like we've talked about, this isn't new information. It's going to be squaring Saturn and going opposite Uranus. So these moon and Scorpio transits suck. And they're going to suck for like the next like year and a half, pretty much. Well, what is it, 2021? No, only for like the next year, really. Well, no, year and a half, I lied. So the next year and a half. Moons in fall, you know what I mean? The moons are about our emotions, about how we feel. And in Scorpio, there's that sense of loss. There's that sense of like abandonment. There's that sense of like, things be like slipping through your fingers. And I think as the moon goes into Scorpio and immediately starts to, it's not going to be super immediate, but it's coming up towards that square with Saturn. There's that pressure, right? Of like, like my feelings are engaged and I'm combating, there's a combativeness or a struggle with, expressing that or being accepted of that. I'm going to get to that. But the moon is going to be sextiling Mercury and Mars, where as the moon's in Scorpio, like, this is what's super bad about like hypochondriacs. Like when you get, like, it's super easy to get your emotions scared about stuff. And then you're like, oh, well, I got to do like, blah, blah, blah. Like this reminds me of my aunt. My whole family is addicts. So we all have really funny characteristics within our behaviors. And my aunt, I love her to death. She is fucking amazing. But she just like, she's sober now. She, partier, all that type of stuff. And her anxiety is so it's almost comical how funny it is. And I look at this moon in Virgo, this moon in Scorpio with everything in Virgo. It reminds me of her. She's also a Virgo. Like she's kind of like a controller in the sense of like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do something for herself. Like it's like we were at the beach one time and my cousin was flying a kite and she literally went over and I was like, oh, let me help you. And then like grabbed his hands and flew the kite. And my cousin was like 15 or 16. And like, she like grabbed the kite from his hands and then was like controlling it for him. And she's like, isn't this fun? And it was just like you could tell it's like, it's a part of, it's an anxiety response, right? Like, for me, like when I get really anxious, like I fucking clean. That's why my apartment's always clean. But the moon sextiling Mercury, Mars is like when you're feeling that like sense of fear, like things are slipping, like this is sextiling Mercury, Mars, like give yourself something to do. Put something in your hands. You might like if you're going to clean something, you might really, really clean it. But this is one of those times of like that maybe the sense of fear or abandonment or things not working out. Like that's the moon in Scorpio, right? As it's applying to Mercury, Mars, and Virgo, this is like, for one, you could be reading the room wrong. Like this is kind of like, oh, I knew it. And so because I knew it, I have to do this and this and this and this and that. Like it's you're going to find ways to justify things, I think, on Friday, out of your fear, but just be careful. I think, moon sextiling Mercury, sextiling Mars, it's just going to be really easy to just be fucking like just tripping. Like you're just going to be tripping, to be honest with you. And so that can lead into things that you may not want to do, but that's why I'm trying to say, like, put something in your hands, do something. Cause I think, and try not to like, just let your feelings like override everything. Cause it's moon going into fall, sextiling Mercury is like that whole like, oh, I planned for the worst. I knew it was going to be the worst and I was right. And so there's this kind of like giving up with this, in my opinion, which is so just immature. Truly. And we get to Saturday. Let's talk about Saturday. Saturday, we then have the moon making that square to Saturn and that opposition to Uranus, like I said. So this is the thing. And this is why I said that, because when you're going to have the moon sextile Mercury and Mars, that's great. You might think you're right. You may be like, oh, well, it's like the hypochondriac thing of like, oh, like I'm making all these like, doing everything for a specific thing. Like you're setting yourself up to be right. That's how I look at this. And that's not always a good thing, right? Like you don't always, it's super easy to have that confirmation bias. Like that's what I almost look at this as. But as we get into Saturday, the moon's going to be making that square to Saturn. and opposite Uranus, like reacting off of that fear. How many times are we going to learn that reacting off of that fear isn't the best idea, right? The moon in Scorpio, our feelings are not going to be well received. That's the moon in Scorpio squaring Saturn in Aquarius. No one gives a fucking shit about your feelings. Truly. That's the sad part. I mean, that's just reality. But I think as the moon squaring Saturn, there's this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can feel, you can be angry, you can be upset. That's squaring Saturn in Aquarius, too damn bad. But as the moon goes opposite Uranus, now that Saturn and Uranus kind of have some space, it's really interesting, in my opinion, watching the moon transits, because the moon's going from, square, like it was square Saturn, then it would be like within an hour hit Uranus. Now it's going to square Saturn, and then after a couple hours hit Uranus. So there is this space in between where I think the moon in Scorpio going into fall is like, oh my God, sextiling Mercury and Virgo, but like, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. And then the moon's going to square Saturn, and it's going to be like, well, we can't do that yet. Like, it's not happening. But then the moon going opposite Uranus. This, in my opinion, is also like, don't do something stupid. Like there's this moon in Scorpio, and I say it this way because Uranus transits can be really, really good. Going off on a limb, doing something crazy can be good, but this moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus is so like panic doing something. And like a lot of people make stupid decisions when they panic. And I think on Saturday with this moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus, like, don't fucking destabilize everything just because you don't feel good, just because things are up in the air and you don't know and you're freaking out. Like, just fucking calm down, truly. Because like, and I hate to be so blunt about it, but it's just like all of this Virgo stuff and all of this Aquarius stuff along with the Scorpio stuff, like, it's, dude, like, this is like, sometimes for your mental health, like, sometimes you just need to stop caring. Like, you just have to check the fuck out. Like, this is, now that I'm looking at this, I'm like, fuck, I'm not looking forward to Saturday. Like, this just sounds like a nightmare. It doesn't sound like the end of the world, but it's just like, when someone just, this looks like an overreaction at the minimum, at the very least. And opposite Uranus too, this is so like, have you ever done something rebellious out of spite when you were a kid? You were like, I was told no, so I'm going to do it anyway. And then you fucked around and found out. That's this. Like, I remember this. My mom was like, Cameron, don't touch the hot stove. And because of the way I was raised, I was very rebellious against authority. And I touched that fucking stove. And it wasn't good. That's this. That was like, I was like, fuck you. I'm going to go against the authority and find out. And it didn't work. Why I use that analogy is just don't base actions off of your emotions. Like, it doesn't work. Mars is in fall and Cancer for a fucking reason. The moon does not work in Scorpio for a reason. Emotions and actions don't work very well together. So just give yourself a space. Give yourself something to do here. And it's important for that too, because now we go into Sunday, and on Sunday, the moon's going to make a sextile to Venus. The moon's going to then go into Sagittarius. Oh, thank God. And then we get Venus in Libra. So try not to panic on Saturday, because Sunday looks a lot better. As we get to Sunday, the moon's going to make a sextile to Venus in Virgo. And then let's go hour by hour. This is 6 p.m. So, of course, we're actually a little bit into the afternoon. Moon goes into Sag. Venus goes into Virgo by like 10 p.m., right? So Sunday with the moon in Scorpio and Venus in Virgo at the end degrees, there's that still nitpickiness, but it's at least it's contacting Venus, right? At least it's like comforting in some sense. The moon will go into Sagittarius later on that night, where there's going to be this kind of like, because it's going to hit the south node, right? Where there's this like, just get me the fuck out of here. Like, have you ever been in a room with people and you just couldn't wait to get in your car and just get the fuck out of there? That's what this is. I know I'm cussing a lot on this one, but like, just straight up, like the moon going into Sag, like this is just like literally just escaping, just getting the fuck out of whatever situation you're in, getting out of there. This is like calling your friend, come save me, get me out of this situation. Venus goes into Libra. at the same time, and the moon, I mean, it's separated, but the moon still at least still has that sextile there. And as Venus goes into Libra, this is like, it's okay. We can breathe. I'm going to tell you right now, as Venus enters Libra starting August 15th, from August 15th until I think it's the middle of October or something, or end of September, I forgot. I think it's the end of September. Enjoy Venus in Libra. Enjoy it. This is truly, I've been talking to my clients about this. Once Venus enters Scorpio, I mean, October's okay. October's good. It's got a lot of trines. It's got a lot of air stuff, but Venus will be in Scorpio through a lot of it, and Venus won't go into Sagittarius till that Mercury-Mars cazimi that I talked about. But Venus in Libra, this is, in my opinion, this is the height of the year. Enjoy Venus in Libra. It's going to trine Saturn. It's going to trine Jupiter. This is what we got, because Venus is going to go into Scorpio after that, which will suck. Venus will go into Sagittarius, we'll go, oh, that's good, right? Well, Mars is going to be in Scorpio the whole time, squaring Saturn and Jupiter. So I don't know how much Venus in Sagittarius will be that fun, simply because of everything else that's going on. But right after Venus goes into Sagittarius, it goes into Capricorn, where it's going to go retrograde on Pluto, and we have the shit winter that I've kind of talked about. So like, this is your, get the good stuff, get them dopamine hits now. That's what I'm trying to say. Enjoy Venus in Libra. Have fun. Who gives a shit anymore? Enjoy yourself. Find ways to relax. Regardless, because clearly this is what's hard about being an astrologer. Your following is both ends of the polarization, right? I look at this as I truly don't care what side of the spectrum you're on, because both sides are very just inflamed. As Venus goes into Libra, it's not worth fighting. Just fucking enjoy yourself. Check out. Like, Venus is in Libra. Make the connections while you can. Find peace where you can. Like, what's so frustrating about everything right now is that it's super annoying that everyone's fighting each other, yet every corporation and the government is essentially like doing everything they can to literally divide people. And it's just like, this is one of those opportunities of like, yo, we have got to find some fucking peace. Truly. Like, this is fucking chaotic. And I think as Venus is in Libra, that's good for peace. That's good for working things out, right? So my thing is lean into that. I don't care on what side you're on or what opinions you have. Just literally relax. Just fucking relax. I don't give a shit what the opinion is. And I'm saying this very bluntly. But Venus going into Libra, trining Saturn, like, a lot of things are going to work out. A lot of things are going to work out. But there's this sense that, like, you got to lean into it. And as Mercury conjoins Mars, there's going to be some more problems. Well, let's talk about next week. So next week, we're going to have Mercury conjoin Mars. We'll have that second full moon in Aquarius. Sun will go into Virgo, and we have Venus trine Saturn. I love all of it. Truly. I think a lot of things really just smooth over in a weird way. I think Mercury conjoining Mars is going to be inflammatory, because I think my prediction is that's when the FDA will approve of the vaccine. But I also think that that's not the first thing we'll hear about it. And I think they might, if they do approve of it, I wouldn't be surprised if they reverse that by October. But that's only if the Mercury-Mars conjunction is the FDA approving it. But we'll see about that. But I look at this week, and I know that, I look at this moon in Scorpio transit just isn't going to be fun. It just isn't. And then I think as Venus goes into Libra afterwards, truly just choose peace. We have chose violence, like on Twitter, like we've chose violence for so long. Like, we've got to choose some fucking peace. And just in our own personal lives too, with everything in Virgo, it's super easy to be hypercritical. It's super easy to just be do. Like, just by the end of this week, we relax. So don't let things get too intense this week, because by next week that they'll calm down a little bit. So that's what I got for you guys. I don't know what else to say here. So with that being said, I appreciate every single one of you guys being here. I love you. Thank you for watching all my videos, and I guess I'll be seeing you next week.